I wanted to leverage the BYOD. You wanted to use the iPads that you got from the class. We wanted the students to use, to own more of the learning. So we started thinking along those lines.
So those are the common threads.
Those were the common threads.
Sure.
I focused on using Google Drive to have the kids begin research and like collaborate on their research for a persuasive writing unit.
Okay, so for homework we have to read the article, highlight a pro or con, and then comment on it.
Those ones, that's from you, and then that's me.
Early on, I asked students to highlight and comment on an article I shared with them on the drive. When I got home and checked in to see how they did, this is what I saw. Students had covered the page in highlight, and it was clear to me that I needed to do a lesson on highlighting skills. I shared this document that I wrote as a reference for my students and spent the next day in class practicing highlighting with them. These were the highlights that 2 students did on the article after my lesson was over.
I think a lot of people use Google Drive to share personal writing and feedback, but it's also a great tool for sharing articles and collaboratively researching in groups. As students read a research article I posted in Google Drive, they were able to comment and also look at other students' comments on the article.
Students were motivated to make thoughtful comments because their peers were going to see them.
When you see the comments from other people, it allows you to see other ideas and how they think.
Me and Nick both found our own articles, and we didn't end up using Tyler's because his wasn't very credible. And we also used 2 from 2 other kids in another group, Gianna and Shannon's.
That Americans are paying for water they could get for free. It concerns those plastic bottles.
After students shared their articles with the class, they broke into small groups and worked on researching together with their partners. Students picked a claim to make as to whether plastic water bottles should be banned, and they continued researching and recording their evidence and arguments in a shared document with their partners. In the end, some groups were for the banning of plastic water bottles and some were against it, but every group definitely wanted to have the most persuasive presentation and rose to the challenge of finding strong evidence to argue for their claim. Here, 2 students are both contributing to a graphic organizer on Google Drive for their presentation. Advantages to using Google Drive.
We can both type at the same time on the same document.
How is that helpful?
Because one can be editing and one can be writing details.
Students learned how to filter search engines to find copyright-friendly images that they could cite in their presentations. Students stored the photos they found in their Google Drive and accessed them later when they were making their presentations. Students found a variety of photos that corresponded with their evidence and arguments and captivated and persuaded their audience. The day of the presentations, we invited the 7th grade LLD class. They took a pre- and post-presentation questionnaire about their opinions on banning water bottles. We were excited to discover that the 8th graders had altered the opinions of several of their 7th grade peers.
So I have a poetry literature unit that I was doing, and the challenge was that I didn't, it's not a book, it's usually handouts that I give them on a day-to-day basis. So, here's a new poem that we're going to look at, and how does it connect to the one before? So I used Digo as social bookmarking, and so instead of me handing the students the literature, I gave them some basic guidelines, and they went out and found it and started making a collection. And as we went,
Digo is a free social bookmarking tool that allows you to collect and organize websites together in one place, just as if you were collecting pages in a binder. With specific guidelines, I asked students to collect poems from certain authors, tag them so that they could be searchable later, and share them to a group page for the class. Once shared, students had the ability to read the poems and leave comments. Oftentimes, these comments allowed students to debate interpretations or to develop connections between several texts. In the past, the unit has always had a small collection of poems that I've always selected, maybe about 8 to 10. With Digo, students created their own content, so all students, 20 students were able to select the poems that they thought were interesting and add them to the site. And after the first day, we had a whole collection of poems that were far more than I would have ever passed out in a class in the past.
Digo is like a bookmarking website. It makes it easier to get back to the pieces that you already looked at. So if you start like one project one week, you can go back to it the next week. Like you can always look back at the stuff, so it makes it easier if you want to like study it more.
It's like you know that it'll be there every time. Like it's you don't lose it.
At no point during the unit were we short on devices. There were 10 laptops in the room, and then what was supplemented, students brought in their own devices. So if we worked in groups of 2, everybody seemed to have something to work with, whether it was a laptop or a phone or an iPad. Everyone was able to work on something, and a lot of times people were able to be almost one-on-one.